Recruitment. It's easily one of the biggest challenges that care leaders face, and it is now, and it probably will continue to be in the future. So are you making sure that the first impression your candidates get really sells the role and your organisation? If they don't, then frankly, you're making recruitment harder than it needs to be. I've just had a really interesting conversation with Johnny Matthews from SeeMeHired about this important subject. At its core, SeeMeHired is an applicant tracking system that's been designed with care providers, but it's much more than just an ATS. My name's Simon Parker, and this is the Care Leaders Network podcast. How important is a good candidate onboarding experience? Well, we're about to find out. Johnny, hello there. How are you, sir?
I'm grand. How are you today?
Not too bad, not too bad. So, Johnny, who are you, where are you from, and what do you do in the world?
So my name's Johnny Matthews. So I'm actually the co-founder of a software platform called SeeMeHired. So basically, we've got a software platform that handles everything from attracting candidates and taking them all the way through the recruitment process, every phase all the way through to signing contracts and getting documents. So a complete end-to-end solution. We're housed in Belfast. Right next to where the Titanic was built. So, so we're building SeeMeHired right next door to where the actual Titanic was built here in Belfast.
Absolutely, absolutely. And because you've learned from the story, clearly you'll be avoiding all of the icebergs to make sure that you don't sink in the process.
Absolutely. Absolutely. This is definitely not a sinking ship. No, all the lessons have been learned from the icebergs for sure.
Good stuff. Okay, nice one. So, Johnny, talk to me about why onboarding specifically is so important.
Well, I think onboarding is very important. And I think what people think of onboarding is the last part in the process. Somebody's accepted a job. But actually, onboarding a candidate or a new employee starts with that first impression of you as an organization. And then also, how were they handled throughout that kind of process to get that job offer? So, onboarding per se, I think, is a wider topic of hiring an employee. I just need to get all the contractual piece together. It's actually about, how you handle that kind of new employee from kind of the first impressions, first touch, and as they go through the process. Additionally, in a more regulated environment, is how do you get the information that you need against a candidate? Because in a regulated environment, there's a lot of documentation. And, for a candidate, it can be a very kind of I guess a hard process to move from one organization to another, depending on what that process looks like. So I think the discussion around onboarding is very important, and even in the wider context of, well, what is the first impression and how do you handle your regulatory requirements and your candidate experience at the same time? And then when it's time to hire, to ensure that you have got all your documentation and you do that very, I guess, streamlined, easy for the candidate to understand, easy for the candidate to complete the information, which ultimately gives, great, I guess, a great start for your new employee and understanding, well, this company was very easy to deal with and what can be a very time consuming and I guess stressful kind of process for someone coming into, I guess, a job in a more regulatory environment where they have to supply a lot of information about themselves.
Sure, there's two things there that I'd almost like to get into. So the first one is the employer value proposition. So your brand as an employer, and you mentioned that first touch point, those the first impressions that are made. And then, of course, there's the regulatory compliance environment as well. Both of them probably is equally as important to each other. One thing that social care certainly has a challenge with is its brand, and I think oftentimes, particularly where people are having initial interactions, whether that be as a candidate or it even potentially as a prospective customer, um, the problem is if you don't have a good way to interact with those people who are interested in your proposition, then that can almost be a black mark. We're so used to, as people, being able to interact with companies through that have nice websites. There's easy ways to be able to interact through maybe chat functionalities or social media and things. Not being able to do that feels like it doesn't feel consistent with where we are from a consumer perspective. And people will often be
Correct.
themselves, well, look, if you haven't got a good way of being able to interact with me, if it's a clunky process, if it's kind of annoying to make a job application or something along those lines, you're really putting yourself on the back foot, and it's already hard enough to recruit before you've even started. So I
Oh,
guess that's a big part of this.
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Now, if you look in today, everyone's consuming everything by photographs, by video. So whenever the first touch point of an organization is, what is this organization? If there is no video content, if there's no pictures and it's just text, people have got lazy in kind of reading text and understanding what that company information is about. Is this a company that I can see myself working for? So what we've kind of focused in on that is making it very easy for, I guess, a company to manage that kind of profile. So, whenever a candidate, for instance, comes in, they want to know what's the culture of the company, what's the history of the company, how stable are they, what's it like to work there, can I see myself working in there? And as I say, we consume everything typically on phone with video, with pictures, and stuff that's easy to consume and read. So if your first touch point is a lot of text, and I guess, regulatory text of this is exactly what you'll be doing and what we're expecting, you're not really putting your best foot forward and capturing that candidate. So my biggest recommendation to any organization is take photographs, photographs of your complexes, of your staff, take video content, sell your story. And also, a lot of organizations now are actually doing videos on a day in the life of, a care assistant. What is it I do? What's rewarding about my job? Why do I like that? Getting that passion across of how this role can be really fulfilling. Now,
Mm.
if you're reading just the context of a job description, you're kind of going, okay, well, that's fundamental tasks that look boring, but you're not really selling the passionate side and, I guess, the fulfilling side of the role. And you can't get that across just in words. So I think, people really need to start moving towards video content, pictures of their organization, who we are, what we're about, what's our culture, what's our benefits, So absolutely, I think the first part, people are not putting their right foot forward. They really need to start focusing on selling, not the job, but selling them as an organization in the context of how fulfilling that role could be for an individual, rather than just text. That makes sense.
Yeah, completely. I always talk about selling culture when you're in the context of recruitment.
Yeah.
Obviously, people need to know the roles and responsibilities and things. But coming back to one of your earlier points about the fact that really we have become lazy as consumers. We've become there's a reason why. Have you ever heard of the acronym TLDR? Too long, didn't read. It's an
No.
it's an acronym that's used basically if people write things that are too long, they'll basically write a summary now. It's like it's almost like a bit of a cliche that things will, if it's too long a form, people will basically have TLDR and they'll just do like a little summary for the people that just can't be asked to read the entire can't be bothered to read the entire document itself, which is kind of hilarious. But it's because of reels and shorts and TikTok and stuff like that. We're becoming finely tuned to having video content a lot of the time, or a series of photos or whatever through social media. That's how it's almost like that's the way that our brains are evolving. And yeah, if you're not taking advantage of the kind of the trends of how people are consuming content as it relates to your recruitment process, then it will seem different. It might seem old school. It's like it's not keeping up with the times. And when there's a massive push to get younger generations involved in the care sector, again, you're putting yourself at a distinct disadvantage by not putting your best foot forward, by selling the culture, by getting those videos and those photos and things out there so that people can go, wow, that looks really good. I want a piece of that.
Absolutely. Absolutely, and I couldn't agree more. And as I say, culture's the biggest thing, but the reward and I guess the purpose. What is the purpose of this role that you'll be filling, and how meaningful is that for the person that you're delivering this service to? And when you make that connection, which is hard in a job ad, the connection of, well, this is a job, but in fulfilling my role, look what's happening on the other side. Who is the customer, and how fulfilling is that job for me to provide that service to that individual. And that's when you draw connections in a role, rather than just spitting out, here's the role's responsibilities, this is what I expect you to do. It is about culture, and then connecting the individual to that role so they can actually see themselves in that role and how rewarding and fulfilling it can be.
It's answering the question, why would I want to work at said organization, rather than just what's the job and how does it work type set of circumstances.
Correct. What's the job, and what's the salary is typically what organizations think, and a lot of organizations don't even put the salary. So what is the job? It is a very kind of compliant way of, this is I've ticked the box, I've put everything in that they need to do, and it's more like I'm contracting them up front that this is what they have to do, more than actually, I want to attract good people, and I want to tell them, how rewarding, fulfilling it can be working here, and what a culture is, and and that's the key things realistically you need to be getting across in your job ads. And also, it's making it easy. Like, as organizations, no one's that tech savvy. How do I go about this? But with the introduction of the likes of SeeMeHired with the platform, it makes it extremely simple for you to do that, just by adding your photographs to the job ads. It's easy to upload a video, and people get caught too much on high level productions. You can get video content, by a professional for a couple £100. You can do stuff on mobile phones if you've got somebody in the organization, like you would put in your Facebook, quick introduction, why do I like to work here? It's just the simple things that actually have got massive impact when you're attracting, potential people to your organization.
Definitely. Talk to me in a little bit more detail about what role onboarding has on the candidate experience, because ultimately that's what your technology, that's the underpinnings of what you're looking to try and achieve. It's making sure that candidate experience is everything that it can be.
Correct. So it's got a massive impact, because if somebody's applying for a job, they might be applying for a couple jobs, and the touch points that they have with that organization is setting them up for their opinion of the organization. So if I'm presented with, a very long application form that I need to fill in, which is basically going to take me half an hour, why do I want to go through that pain of that process of filling that information out when I might not even get shortlisted? So also, as a candidate goes through that process, it's that first taste of them as an organization. Did they give me feedback? Were they timely in getting back to me? When I had to do an interview, were they prepared for that interview? When I come out that interview, what information was it clear what I had to fill out and what I had to do to fulfill the kind of obligations of that onboarding process? So it is really key on that customer experience or candidate experience that you're presenting, a smooth, kind of more slick process. Anything that the expectation the candidates to fill out, you're making it easy for them to do. So for instance, in our process, what we ask our clients to do is collect basic information. Do they have the basics to do this job, that what you're looking for in the application? Don't present them with a full long list of information they need to fill out. Bring them in that initial kind of part of the process. Make sure that it's mobile friendly. So for instance, in SeeMeHired, whenever a candidate applies for a job, they'll get a text message and a tracker, and they can track like a DHL package tracker, where am I in the process? So giving them timely information. Also, what we do is we cut the process up for the client. So we recommend, right, okay, well, here's the information you need before interview. We've got electronic forms that sends it out to the candidate, text message, link on my phone. I can fill out that information very quickly, very easily in the phone. Also, what we've enabled for clients is when a candidate applies with a CV or resume, we scrape that information. So if you need that for regulatory requirements, they don't have to fill in that information. For instance, in the care industry, I need 3 years of work history with no gaps, or we pull all that information on their CV, so they don't have to retype that information in. Because they've supplied it to you once, and that this is the other problem about candidate experience. I've given you that information with CV. Why do I need to fill it out in another form? Why do I need to? So it's really important that each touch point you have at each stage of your process, when you're gathering information or putting, I guess, a burden from the candidate's point of view, that you're doing that as easy, as slick as possible, and as modern as possible to what they're used to. So at the end of the day, when a candidate first comes into your organization, even before they accept a job, they're starting to judge you as an organization of how prepared, how easy was it, and how was I treated throughout that kind of process. So I guess that's the first part of a new employee's impression of the organization. Also, there's statistics to say when somebody's starting to they're not comfortable in a job, um, for other reasons, they start reflecting back on the onboarding process and saying, "Oh yeah, but this was really clunky and it was really hard to join this organization." So it is one of them kind of things. Like any relationship, first impressions last.
Mm.
So you need to be putting your best impression throughout that kind of process from the first touch point to the day they start to work, and making that as easy as possible.
One of the things that uh, one of the things that has been reiterated to me from countless people in leadership roles in the care sector is that a massive part of that role is trying to remove obstacles for their team to be able to just get on with the job. I guess what this is doing
Yeah,
is what you're talking about there. It's about getting rid of the obstacles during the recruitment process, with hopefully with the intention of setting the context that that's the type of organization that likes to be able to get all the nonsense out the way, just so that you can focus on the most
right.
important stuff. Which obviously in the care sector it's hard because it's a regulated environment, etc. And there are certain things that you have to do, but to the extent that you can make the team's life easy, as I say, it's you want that to be a reflection of what happens within your organization, which of course is all part of your brand. Again, it's that reflection into the outside world, outside of your organization, making sure that it's a positive interaction. And yeah, that the opportunity, that first impressions opportunity isn't wasted.
Absolutely. And I guess the other key thing as well is on that process is, as you say, you want people to get on with their jobs, and you don't want them, especially in maybe the care homes, you don't want them having some cumbersome process to go through from a regulatory perspective. Have I done everything right as well? So by enabling a product to make sure that I can't go wrong in this process, if I get an application, I bring them to the next stage, all my documentation's on there. I just have to click a button and I'm right from a compliance perspective. I've sent that out. When documents come back into the system, we equally focus on not just the candidate experience, but what is that person who's got a busy day? How do we get them to enable them to focus in on the applicant and bringing them through the process and introducing themselves, but ensuring that they've got the compliance side of things, I guess, secondary to the process. How do we focus more on the person and less on the process?
Mm.
So what we tend to focus in on is, let's not worry about the burden of the process. We're making it very simplified, for the users doing the recruitment, but also for the candidate. So you can ensure less process and more person.
Mm.
So I guess we kind of, with technology, are moving to a kind of more people centric process, rather than worrying about the process rather than the person.
Less process, more person. I like that.
Correct.
It's a
Right. Correct.
probably a worthwhile alliterated mantra for lots of people in the care sector. So no, I like that. So SeeMeHired has a well developed proposition. You've got plenty of customers in the care sector. I'm sure I was talking about this a little bit off air, weren't we? The kind of the never ending list of things that you need to do as a startup organization. Talk to me about the development roadmap, and the things that you're
Yeah.
working on for the next stage of the proposition and things. Because obviously, what you've got is it's a decent bit of kit, but everyone's always working on
Yeah.
that next thing.
Yeah, and I'll focus in on, so us as an organization, we work very closely with our clients and have reviews and say, well, where can we go next? So for us, there's a couple key things that we've got on our roadmap. The first thing is we're doing a full integration for the third party legal checks. So we're in our platform at the minute. Once it gets to DBS, there's some questions asked about DBS, but then they're going to third party, applications for doing DBS checks, whether in Northern Ireland Access and I or DBS. So we're doing a full integration for DBS. So as they take someone through the process, it's a simple click of a button to initiate, engage that DBS process and get all the DBS documentation back. So that's one key element that we're focusing in on. The second kind of key thing that we're working on now is we've got a fully integrated video interview tool that our care clients love because it presents all the information about the candidate. The candidate can't see it. So my questions from a regular perspective pop up on the screen and I can take my notes. I can look at the application form they filled in on the screen. The candidate can't see that. I can see lots of information on the screen. So when I'm doing a video interview, I've got the prompts. I know what question to ask the candidate. So for my regulatory paperwork, and I can type that in. Where we're moving to now in our video interview platform, and we are now start looking in at the likes of the implementation of AI. So we're really, if I go back to focus more on the person, we're now changing our video interview tool where you will ask the question and instead of writing notes and focusing in on the process or writing notes because I need to take some notes, we're now introducing technology where we're going to transcribe the notes directly on the video interview. Not only are we going to transcribe, but then we're going to then take the transcription at the end of that question and use AI to then give me an overview of their answer and bullet points of their answer. So it means when you're doing a video interview and an on-site interview, you can record it with a microphone. It means that I can focus in on the candidate. I can ask them the question. I can observe that candidate and pay attention because I don't have to take notes and write notes what they answered because they're all going to be there. And not only are they going to be there, when it gets to the end and I've got to put my scoring in because we do all the automated scoring, it means that there's the transcription, but here's an overview of what that transcribed call answer was, and here's the bullet points of how they answered it. So I'll have the option that I can add a couple notes, but realistically, I can read them notes and I can just do my star rating very quickly on the candidate and actually focus in on the person. So that's a kind of, I guess, utilizing AI as AI comes more into the fore, and specifically looking in at that kind of video interview or on-site interview, filling out forms that when I get checked by the regulator, here's the question, here was the notes, here was my score, and why was my score. We can focus in on, here was the question, this is exactly what the candidate says, here's an overview then of that answer and the bullet points, here's a couple of my notes based on that answer and my score rating. So moving more to that candidate centric, and we're looking to deliver that kind of in this quarter as well. So DBS checks, we're looking in at that. The next thing that we're looking on the product roadmap is we do collect documentation. So there's electronic forms that companies create and they can split it up throughout the process or all at once. So what we're looking at now is when we collect documentation specific to the care industry, we've got checklists built into the system that says, and I can checklist, but we actually present the document. So someone takes a picture of their passport on their phone whenever we send that document. Whenever that presents to the end user, they can have a look at that document, and there's a checklist that we're embedding into that upload. So from a regular perspective, I've checked this proof of address. Is it the address on the application? Yes. Is it, a permissible? Is it a bank statement? What is it? Yes, it is. It's a bank statement. Okay. What was the date on that bank statement? Okay, so now that document's verified. So it's given that layer of verification, A, for the candidate as they upload it, that they're doing a verification check with them checklists as they do it. And then as it comes in, presenting that document in an image for the viewer to say, I've checked this, yes, yes, yes. Because we have found, you know, ultimately people get busy in their jobs, and they check some of the documents, and then they get found out later on down the process, that was a bank statement, but that was from a year before, or it was from a previous address. They've just looked, oh, it's a bank statement, it looks okay, moved on. So just ensuring that it makes it very simple and easy just to certify documentation. So that's on our product roadmap for care as well. So the biggies that we're looking after this quarter is the integration of the DBS checks, the revamping of our already outstanding video interview tool, but making it even, I guess, more person focused. And then also, if you are collecting documentation, additional kind of layers of checks just for the candidate to tick off, yes, it is a compliant document. And then when it comes in, yes, I can certify that it is a compliant document. So that's the kind of three key things that we're specifically focusing in this quarter in the kind of care sector.
So there's some nice efficiency plays there, just making the world an easier place to recruit with, and then also just quality of the overall interaction. Again, coming back to that employer value proposition, really putting it out there and making sure that people have a great experience when they have their first touch points as well. So I'm guessing that's landed probably pretty well with current customers.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. So, as I say, once again, it's just making it easy again for that candidate, but making it, I guess, more personable for the organization. As I say, the more that we automate with a click of a button, and it's regulatory compliant and easy to use, it's just great for the person who's doing interviews or handling that process, and it's great for the candidate. So it's a real win-win situation. And as I say, if we look at our key focus, it is how much time do I focus in on that candidate as an individual and less on that process. So that's basically our mantra here at SeeMeHired.
Sounds very sensible. Johnny, thank you for sharing the insights that you have done. Also, the update on the platform itself all sounds really, really exciting. Quick one, just to round things off. How do people find more about the new the platform itself, and of course the new features as well?
Absolutely. So anyone can come on to kind of the SeeMeHired website. You'll be able to see actually customers. You can see customers' jobs. So if you go to SeeMeHired, you can just look through our companies, and when you click onto it, you can see basically how jobs are presented for candidates. There's information about the platform, but I also highly recommend that you just jump on a call with us. There is book book a demo. A demo takes 20 minutes up to an hour and a half, depending on the person who wants that demo. But I think it's important to actually see the platform itself. We've got plenty of case studies where we've really excelled. I guess recently in our last year deliverable in the care sector was on onboarding, when you get to that contractual stage. So whenever you're ready to contract, you just select the pack. We've got all the pre-populated packs with all the documentation, whether it's medical forms, whether it's HMRC forms. They're all basically selected in a pack at a click of a button and sent to that candidate. So basically, when I need to contract somebody, I just send out the electronic contact. So it takes literally 3 minutes maximum to send out the full onboarding pack to a candidate that's regulatory compliant, where before it was maybe taking half an hour to an hour as they were going, oh, this role, and they need to attach this document to an email, this document to an email, this document to an email. And then whenever that information comes back from a candidate experience, they had to print stuff off, handwrite them, upload them. So what was taking days and weeks, in our recent case study with one of our care groups, was actually we're getting our full onboarding packs, which is 11 documents, back in minutes. So some of our candidates, 34 minutes later, every document supplied and all their information, because once again we're presenting on a mobile phone. If they need to take a picture of anything, they can take it on their phone. All the information, if they've pre-populated in their application form, pulls into that information. So yeah, so basically in the onboarding, what our customers would say is, 96% of their time has been saved on onboarding candidates, and they're getting their information back in minutes, and hours rather than days and weeks now. And it's all regulatory compliant. Click of a button, all the documents are kind of there. So we've got a new case study going up this week, actually, and one of our care clients. We've got a lot in hospitality and manufacturing, but one of our care groups, on the massive impact it's had on the ease of hiring, 50% reduction in the time it takes to hire. There's quotes like 99%, in admin time saved, etc. So a lot of focus was on that onboarding process of all the contracts, all the forms at the end of the process, and marrying that with the stuff that you've collected in between. And I guess, as I say, this year's all about, okay, how do we focus more throughout the process, focusing in on the candidate?
Well, in a world where recruitment's really tough, having good ways to be able to
Mhm.
optimize that process, whether it would be making it more efficient or making the overall interaction with the prospective team members of a higher quality, then it's got to be important for people to give consideration to. So, Johnny, appreciate your time. Thanks so much, and hopefully we'll get an opportunity for some more content soon.
Absolutely. Listen, thanks for your time today.